Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Mildenhall and Volmer. And today is going to be, and promises to be, quite a lengthy video. So sit back and strap yourselves in and enjoy the video, because today it's about the new look of the layout, as to what I've been doing with it. It's been a little while. It's slightly delayed. It was supposed to have been out last week, but I never really got around to doing it. And also some new stuff's turned up on the layout. There's also another repaint to look at, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff to have a look at on my video today. So like I said, just sit back and relax and grab a glass of your favourite beverage, whether it's a cup of tea or chocolates. It's a bit kind of gloomy and dark outside and cold, and just enjoy the video. So I'm just about to spin you around and show you what's going on the layout. So today we're going to start here at the South West Trains Mildenhall train care depot with a visitor, my class 158 GWR. So this will become a bit more relevant later on in the video. And so basically we're just going to start here, and nothing much has happened at this end of the layout as such. This is just the kind of add-on end that's sitting on my window shelf. But I am going to spin you around because it starts to change right about here. So the first thing I've done is I've added this yard in this corner. I haven't finished with it yet. I'm still playing about with various things, so I'm just going to get rid of these gates so it doesn't look so untidy. But basically I've decided to create a little yard here, and this gives me a little excuse to park up some of my Network Rail vehicles that I have knocking about. So I've decided to create this, and basically it is actually disconnected, as you can see at the moment. It's just connected via the fish plates from one bit to the other, because this is the crossover point between the main layout and this additional piece on the window ledge. And the idea is that these vehicles here can just go out through the exit over at that end. It does extend out, and well, it does extend just to this corner here, which is just about there. There we go. Well, you can just see that there's a load of trash and stuff, skips and odd bits and pieces, and we'll move on to that a little bit closer. But in the meantime, as you can see, the layout has been ballasted, and it's been ballasted up to where it needed to be ballasted. So that's kind of where you can sort of see there's a distinction between the ballast, where there's sort of a darker patch, and then there's this newer, later batch of ballast. So that's kind of marks the start of where we started chopping up the layout. The back end of the layout, the station side, is pretty much the same. But there is one slight change, which is down at the other end, but that'll be reinstated, but I'll go through that as we get down there. So basically you have the two main running lines here, and as you can see, they are a lot more shallower than what they were before. And as you can see, the entrance to the container yard is pretty much identical. And I've also added, this is the container line and this is the head shunt, and excuse me, and I've managed to be able to wrap that around, so you've got the buffers just down there, so basically they can run around the train. So as you can now see, we've moved further down slightly, and you can see that we've got this head shunt which goes into two lines, so the Loco can run around the train basically and go to the front of the train. And then we've got this kind of like this island little patch here to designate and separate the container terminal area from the main running lines. Also, as you can see, the matchsticks have been out again. And also some of the ballast that I had, spare ballast knocking around. I've also been doing some road markings, and this is basically just to sort of create a new look sort of approach to the layout and to make it even bigger than what it was before. So I've managed to change it all, and I've added some planters, and I'm just going to take you in for a closer look. So we're now off the tripod and freehand, and as you can see, this is the fueling point, and I'm just going to move the tripod out of the way so I don't knock it like I normally do. Probably will anyway. And then from this end, you can see that there's a pump there, and there's also a tank inside it. And I haven't quite finished with this area, but we're not too far off. So I've created these islands, I've added the road markings, I've painted over some of the original, forgive the shadows, I've painted over some, because basically I wanted to keep the texture of what was here previous. So I'm not really too bothered about having it proper and smooth like this area here, because to me this looks really realistic. I really like it, and it's all kind of done for just some of the mistakes that I've made, and I've sanded it, I've gone over it, I've repainted it, and you know, you've ended up with all these kind of textures and things like that, so it looks really, really good. So the idea is now we've got these 2 points where the entrance is, and they go straight into basically this section here, and this point here is only for the fueling area here. So if you need fuel, it's this point here for the internal vehicles around the container terminal. This little section here where the road markings are here is just for the staff, so they don't go into the container terminal itself. They can just come in and then just park their vehicles out of the way without interfering with what's going on in the container terminal. And then the vehicle, the actual lorries, can come in along here, and then they can pick up their container like this lorry here. On this occasion, he's just picking up from here, and as you can see, there's some more road markings. So if I just come out a bit, and you've got the first of the reach stackers. This is the official maritime one, and that's just loading the lorry, and then it will go down here, and then you have a choice to either go out towards the exit, which is on the outer perimeter. If your box is to be collected on the other side of the stack, you would follow this one-way system back around here and pick up from here or wherever. As you can see, there's the markings here for the boxes. And there's, as you can see, is my other reach stacker. So you can then load on this side, and then you can either come back round here and go out, as I've just mentioned, or if your box isn't ready, for example, or you need to have your brake, you can do what this lorry is doing here. This lorry will then come along here, spin round where this one is, and you can back into one of the bays if there's a bay available. At the moment there isn't, but that's because I haven't just set it up properly, but it can be parked up there. And this one is now ready to collect its box, but again, that's got to follow the one-way system. So that's got to come out and follow the one-way signs to pick up its box. If, for example, it's to be unloading a box, then it can come here, go towards the exit, go around this island where the straddler is, and the straddler can then lift the box up, remove it, and then again, this lorry can either go and pick up its next container, or it can go and park up. And if I show you from the outside, it looks a lot bigger and a lot different. I'm going to be ordering some new, some more containers for this area because it looks a bit bare. So I want to order some more. So you've got stack A here, stack B's over there. Those are the 45-foot containers. These are the 40-foots and the 20-foot. Also, as you can see, I've continued the ballasting all the way through. And I've separated it with this concrete Southern Region fencing. This is homemade scrap fencing, made from offcuts of what card I had remaining. Because I was speaking to Paul at the model shop, and the prices that they want, just generally speaking, for fencing, is really quite horrific. Just to do the stretch that I was going to be thinking of doing was going to cost me about £20, and I just thought, well, I can just do it myself. So that's what I did. I just got some round match concrete paint, cut the offcuts of card that I had, and they were literally really odd shapes. Some were triangles and some were like some odd curves and stuff, but I managed to salvage square pieces out of it, or rectangular pieces out of it, to make this fencing. And then I've used matchsticks again for the posts. And I didn't bother painting it properly because that gives you that kind of see-through kind of look, so it kind of looks like it's a bit grimed up. I've experimented with the puffer bottle. I bought a puffer bottle from Gauge Master. It's a kit. I purchased that to do some of this static grass around here. I was going to get a proper static grass applicator, but to be honest with you, for the prices that they're charging and the amount of static grass I was going to use, it really wasn't economical to do it that way, so I didn't even bother going down that road. But as you can see, there are some nice views of the container terminal, and I'll probably take some shots towards the end and create a bit of a montage. As you can see at this end, my 57's kind of been my test train, and that's kind of run around the train and back at the front end of it. And then at this end, we've got, it just goes back towards the other end, which has now been ballasted. Now at this bit, platform 1, there is no track currently. I was going to leave it as abandoned, but I'm still going to try and reuse it if I can. So I haven't quite finished with that bit yet, so I might have to do that a bit again, which is fine. But for now, it's all running well and all working. And then my town scene's been put back together again, although the big thing now is to add the lighting, because now the lighting's all been moved and changed. So I need to put some lighting here, another post here, put some more posts here, because otherwise this whole area here is just going to be in the dark. So I need to add some more lighting, so I need to go and get some more posts to add, and also one for there as well, and probably some here on this island here. And hopefully that will cover this whole middle area, without being too sort of dark. So yeah, and then there might be a post sort of probably here or something like that, and a couple down this end or something, just to make sure that there's enough. I don't want to overload it with light, so I just need to see where the patches are that need to be added. But like I said, I've got to go through all the lighting again. But at the end of the day, I'm really pleased with the way it's gone. And also you've got the security fencing, which I've done along here. So it's a lot smoother. It's a lot easier, the transitions, going around the curves. So they seem to be running a lot better, and I'm a lot more pleased with it. It's a lot more simpler. I've lost a fair bit, like I said, sidings and things like that. But to be honest, I don't think I was ever going to have enough room to sort of put all the trains that I have and wagons that I have. So in some ways this is like a less is more, but I really like this. But once I get the more containers and things, it's all going to be good. So as many of you will know, I've been doing a lot of repaints on the Class 60s, and this is like my penultimate one that's going to be coming into shot now. And here it comes. So this is my latest repaint, and this is GBRF Class 60 60095, and like I said, this is my latest repaint. So I finished this last week, and I was meant to do a video on it, and I wasn't feeling really up for it, so I didn't bother with the video. But here she is now, 60095 GBRF, and I'm so pleased with the way that this one's come out. I guess I've been putting this one off the most, just purely because I was a bit kind of concerned of delivery application and how I was going to go about doing it. But just like all my other 60s, it's been wired up in exactly the same way as my other 60s. It's been painted up in exactly the same way. But to be truthful, this one's got the matte black chassis as opposed to the gloss black chassis that some of my 60s have. So that is basically the main difference. I salvaged the front end as well of this particular 60. And when I say I salvaged the front end, I mean this yellow here, the yellow end at the front, was actually the same yellow front end as the original. So I just masked that off and kept that. And all I did is I used a fiberglass pen to gently remove the numbers that was on the front end of it, which is just about there. And then reapplied the new numbers of 60095 and the other decals that needed doing as well. It's got, as you can see, it's got the headlights as the other ones. It also has interior cab lights. It has instrument lights and has detailing inside at both ends as well. It hasn't got any sound on it. Like I said, TTS chips for the Class 60 are pretty difficult to get hold of right now. So this particular one is without sound. However, it runs well enough, and I guess it's not as smooth as the Hornby 60s, but like I said, this particular locomotive has cost me, I think, about £80 or so to do, as opposed to the 180 recommended retail price that Hornby are going to be asking you for. The transfers are from Railtech. The orange is pretty good, and so is the blue. I know I did have a look at a lot of images of 60095, and the orange is quite a fair bit darker. So I'm really pleased with how it's come out, and I just think it just looks absolutely great. And so this is like another 60 that's done and it's ready, and it's now going to be interesting to see whether or not the Hornby version of this, whether or not it's going to come out in a blue like this, blue and orange like this, or whether it's going to be, which is what I suspect it's going to be, like the Class 20s and the 50 and all the other GBRFs that they've pretty much done. Irony is apart from the 47 GBRF that they did, 739, which is pretty much more the correct colours. So we shall see. So we're going to send this on its merry way. So the next thing to talk to you about is just approaching us now. And this is my newest recruit to the layout. and this is a First Great Western Class 150-2. This is a Kerno's limited edition model. And before we take a real closer look at this model, I'm just going to take you back to my face and to the box and everything, and discuss everything about it, and then we'll come back to the train for a proper demo. So hello and welcome back to my face, and basically I'm just going to give you a full rundown of this DMU before we actually go back to the DMU for a demo. So it's a Batman Class 150 First Great Western. It's a Kerno's limited edition, and it is 32935X for those of you who are interested. It currently costs $189.99, and which is, in my view, pretty good value for money. Now, from what I'm gathering, the GWR version, which is the green version of the Great Western 150-2, will be a fair bit more expensive, which I don't quite understand, because it's essentially the same locomotive with a different colour scheme on it. But I guess they tell us that the costs have gone up, but we seem to get lumbered with all the costs. So $189 in this day and age is actually pretty good going for a 2-car DMU. Now, one of my subscribers had asked me and said to me, have I got any Suburban stock, because I tend to run a lot of freight on here, which is true. I do run a lot of freight on here, but I do have my Suburban services, which I run mainly in the hands of my First Great Western 158 and my 2 Southwest trains 450s. But now I have this First Great Western plain blue with the pink doors in the 150-2 DMU. My express services are currently run by Intercity HSTs, but I do have a GWR 800 on order, which is the trainboat one. So why do I need to talk to you about this and just not show you it running? Well, and that's because basically this 150 is fitted with sound, and it's not fitted with factory sound. Kerno models were selling the factory sound fitted one for $309.99. So that is, you know, an additional £120. I believe that's right. About £120 extra on top of the $189. So basically you're paying £120 for the sound chip, which, to be honest with you, I didn't think that was good value for money. So it got me thinking about where I could get a sound chip from that I wanted. So what I did is I did a search on YouTube for the First Great Western Batman Class 150s, and it came up with a number of videos. And one of the videos that came up was by Underground Eric, and many of you may be familiar with his work. And I did watch that video in its entirety, and it was very interesting, some of the points he was making. And I found it particularly useful because as part of my research, I wanted to know how to get into it, or how easy, because I've only just received it yesterday. And the sound chip arrived before the DMU, so I've only just fitted this morning with sound. And so I watched Underground Eric's review of his Batman 150, which he got from Olivia's Trains, and it was the first Great Western in local lines, not in the plain blue. So it gave me an idea of, and it was sound, so it gave me a rough idea of how to go about opening it and where to put the sound chip, where to put the speaker, and all the rest of it. I got talking to Kevin at Coastal DCC, and yes, I do have another one of his chips fitted into this 150 DMU. So I have his sound chip basically in my 50s. I've got it on a 66. I've got his sound chip on my 73, which is my most recent purchase of his, was a 73. And now I've got a Coastal DCC chip on my 150 DMU. Now, one of the things that came out of Underground's Eric's video was that he had a Coastal DCC chip in it, and he had it with the Sugar Cube speaker that comes with it. And for those of you who are not familiar with Sugar Cube speakers, I will show you what they are like, and then you can have a look for yourselves. It tends to be that nowadays, talking to Kevin, that basically a lot of these ESU chips are coming with Sugar Cube speakers as opposed to the 20x40s that we used to. I believe that's what they are. The standard ones like you get in the Hornby TTS range. They're now coming with these Sugar Cube speakers, and they basically look like, if I can get it out, then I'll show you. So for those of you not familiar with Sugar Cube speakers, this is how it comes. It's a little diddy little thing like that, and then basically you get a sprue like this, and which you have to build it up. So it goes from like this flat Sugar Cube to one of these Sugar Cube speakers, which has got, as you can see, it's got a lot more depth to it. So it does actually look like a Sugar Cube, whereas that just looks like a flat. So you have to build it up. And you build it up by just adding the various bits from the sprue, super glue them together, and then create like an enclosure for it. And that will give you a better sound. Now, the eagle-eyed of you will probably look at me saying, well, if you've got them in your hand, what have you got into that? What have you got in that DMU? And that is a very good question. So the answer to that question is, I don't have a Sugar Cubes in it. I spoke to Kevin, and like I said before, and I've said this many times, I'll keep saying it for as long as he's given me this kind of service. He's an absolutely fantastic guy. He's answered so many of my questions. He's always happy to help me with my questions. He's so nice, and he's like I say, he can't do enough. He's like really helpful. The price again is just below £100. It's just under £100. So you're not, whereas many sound chips these days tend to be 110, 115, that kind of mark. And like I said, I would have paid £120 extra if I bought the official Kerno sound fitted ones. So that's probably got the lock sound. I don't know where it's come from. I don't think it's Southwest Digital. It could be wrong. So I bought this chip from Kevin. Now, when I phoned him, I asked him about it, and I said, have you got a video on it at all? And he said to me, well, I don't actually, but if you watch the Class 153 video that he's got, it's pretty much very much the same. It's a few differences, but nothing too much. It's pretty much the same thing. So I watched it, and that sold me on it. I thought, yeah, that's really, really cool. And I bought it. And as per usual, his level of service is like remarkable. I mean, I ordered it one day, it was here the next. That's how quick it was. And the thing is I watched Underground's Eric's video after I bought the chip, and I didn't know that he had Coastal DCC sound in it at the time. He did say it in the video as I was watching it, and he basically wasn't that impressed. He said basically he'd rather get a Legoman Biffo one, and he said that you could still use the Sugar Cube and it would sound good. So I was quite interested to hear how the Sugar Cube speaker would fare in this 150 that he did. So I watched his video, and he did a sound piece without the enclosure and with the enclosure, and it sounded okay, but until you get it for yourself, you're never really going to be sure. And I was also quite interested to see whether or not what he was saying about Kevin's sound on the 150 was actually true to form. Now, from my point of view, I'm not a fan of Lego Man Biffo chips, but everyone's got their own sort of personal favourites. I mean, there's some people that, you know, if they find somebody they like, they'll stick with them. And I tend to stick with Kevin at Coastal DCC because I know that I get great customer service, I get great value for money for my chips, and I know that if I have any problems, he's more than happy to help me with them. And the sound files are really good on them, and I really like them. But I know there's other people that swear by either, you know, some of the others like Lego Man Biffo or Mr. Sound Guy or You Choose or whoever. But so when I got this sound chip and yesterday, and I fitted it this morning, the body came off quite easily, and in the actual guide that Batman give you, which I didn't actually put in a box, so I can actually show it to you. So bear with me a minute. Right. So the actual space for the speaker on the 150s, for those of you who don't know, there is actually a space underneath the 150 driving end for a sugar cube speaker. That's what they kind of, but there's also, if you look at the diagram, there's also a space here. I think it shows you that you could put the flat speaker upside down, which is basically, let me just show you, essentially, because I've got a load of these speakers, as you can see, and it's this one here. The reason why it's this one as opposed to one of the other ones is this one's come out of a TTS chip, where I've replaced the TTS, but I've kept them because they're still perfectly usable. So worst comes to the worst, and there's a problem, I can always swap them out. But this particular one is actually a 4 ohm. That one that's come up with TTS chips, which are tend to be 8 ohm. So I don't think that particular speaker will work. I could be wrong. But I did have 2 of these, and this is the speaker that's in the 150 without the enclosure. It hasn't got this enclosure in it. So I fitted it with that, and because originally what I did is it also said that within the PCB board there's 2 solder pads where you can solder the plus and minus of the speakers, so you don't have to literally run wires from the decoder to where you're going to put the speaker. So you just need to wire the speaker just to the actual solder pads, and then that's it. And it'll take the information from the decoder without the wiring, because it's already connected via the PCB board. So I originally tested it with the Sugar Cube speaker, and I wasn't that overly impressed, to be honest. And although it looked like it was going to sit nicely in there, the problem that I had with the Sugar Cube speaker was that it just didn't sound that great. And you also had to make sure that there wasn't any vibration within the speaker when you dropped it in, and it was quite hard to actually drop it in and secure it, because you can't really get your fingers in there. So you have to find a way of dropping it in and actually securing it in position to make sure it doesn't move, because then otherwise if you don't secure it properly, the vibration will transfer and then the sound will become distorted. So that's what I was finding out, and I really wasn't impressed. So I thought, well, before I commit to the Sugar Cube speaker, I'll desolder the connections, and I'll connect it and I'll solder it to the speaker that I've just showed you. And as soon as I did that and I switched on the sound, it sounded so much louder. It sounded so much better, even without the enclosure. It just sounded so much better. And then you can drop that in, and you can still got space to drop it in and put the seats on the top without seeing the speaker inside and the wiring inside, which is something I wanted to do because obviously it's got interior lighting. The last thing I wanted to do is switch the interior lights on, and then you've got all this mishmash of speaker enclosures and wires all just hanging through the body, which just looks absolutely awful, you know. So by being able to just put that speaker flat and still put the seating on top, it just conceals everything so you don't actually see the speaker. I used a lot of blue tack to make sure that A, it was stuck down, and B, that the sound enclosure was as tight as it could be, to make sure that all the sound went through the bottom of the train, rather than through any gaps that may occur. And by doing that, it's made a huge difference to the way it sounds. It sounds so good now with a regular speaker in it. And I don't think I would have got that with the Sugar Cube speaker. I did speak to Kevin about it, and he actually said that I could actually add the two Sugar Cube speakers together. But I wasn't really too sure where I was going to add the second one and where I was going to put it. And I didn't really fancy drilling additional holes into the chassis. And because I felt that the other speaker was sufficient, being this speaker without the enclosure, and as long as I sealed it in properly, then I should get good sound. And sure enough, I've got fantastic sound out of it. And I have to say, I'm very pleased with the sound chip. Now, I have to say something else. I have remarked on several occasions about Kevin's customer service capabilities. He's absolutely fantastic. And I had a problem with this chip. So the problem with this chip was that it was its performance. It's kind of like the old Hornby 66 chips that we had and the old 50 chips that we had, that when you went to pull away, it had that jerkiness about it. It just kind of went, and then before it actually smoothed out. And with the TTS chips, you can use the change the motor algorithms and things like that. And that's how we got around it. And there's various fixes, and then they've since sorted it out thereon. So I phoned up Kevin this morning and I said to him, Kevin, I've received your sound chip. Absolutely fantastic. I really like it, but I have a slight issue with it. And he just said to me, well, what's the problem with it? And I said to him, well, I've got this jerkiness on pull away. And he said, right, okay, that's fine. So what you need to do is use the auto-tune feature of the decoder, and that will sort it out, no problem. And I tell you what, it's the first time I've had to use the auto-tune feature of a decoder, but it worked fantastically well, absolutely brilliant. It was so easy to do, and it just runs perfect now. It's just really great. So I believe it only works for ESU decoders. I don't know about other decoders, so don't quote me on it, but he did say to me that the ESU decoders are like that. They've got this auto-tune feature. So he taught me through it, which is absolutely brilliant. He taught me through it. He said, look, just go to CV54, zero that. So put 54 to 0. And then he said, put that onto the programming track and then press F1. And basically, the DMU will just shoot off. It literally did. It said it will go at full speed and it will just go off for about a metre or so, because it will just auto-tune itself whilst it's doing that. That's the whole part of the procedure. And then it will stop, and then that's it, it's done. So I went, okay, fine, I'll do that. And I did. And sure enough, I put it on the track, press F1, whoosh, the DMU shot off. And now she's running perfect. She's not juddering or splitting or spitting or coughing. It's now running absolutely perfect. So big thumbs up to Kevin. You know, he was at the end of the phone and he talked me through it, and it's all sorted and it's absolutely brilliant. His sounds, like many of his sounds, there isn't a huge amount of sounds on his chips, but what you do get, you'll use. So, for example, F0 is the headlights as usual, F1 is the sound, switch that on. 2 and 3 are the horns, F4 is an air release, F5 is a flange grill, so you do get that from the F6. It's got the door closing sounds, and but curiously, it doesn't have the door openings like the 158s, but it does have the door closing sounds. And again, we'll go through the sounds. F7 is the guards to drive the buzzer, and the response back. So again, I'll talk you through that. F8 is the volume control, so you can switch that on and off. F9 is the inertia, which again is a fantastic feature with his chips. And I've talked you through this before, but just in case you don't quite understand it, it's like, for example, if you're pulling up to a terminus and you're going too fast and you're not going to stop in time, you can press the F9 and that acts like a DC controller, and you can just shut it off straight away. So you haven't got to wait for it to decelerate. So it's almost like just switching the power off. F10 is the whistle, and F11 is the build-up of air pressure before you start, and F12 is the Spirex valve, and that is it. You do have F13 and 14, auxiliary 1 and 2, but in all truthfulness, the ones that you're going to get, you are likely to use. There isn't some sort of, and I like that because I'm more likely to remember that as features than I am if there's like 28 features or whatever, 28 functions, because a lot of them you don't really necessarily use. And the thing is, it probably keeps the price down. I mean, like I said, I'm paying under £100 for this chip, which I think is great value. So I'm now going to spin you around, put you back onto the DMU, and then you can actually have a look and listen for yourself. So here we go. So 0 is the lights, and then F1 is to start it up. So you can hear that it's standing up, it's starting up the two units. And I think it sounds really, really good, considering that this is a standard speaker in it. So you've got the high and low horns. So that was the high one. That's the low one. And they are independent. And then you've got the air release, which is F4. F5 is the flange squeal, which I guess you only get that once the train is moving. F6 is to close the doors. Now I think that demonstration alone demonstrates how clear that speaker is and how good that speaker is in that DMU, because it was so clear. I'll do it again. So F7 is the guard to driver buzzer and reverse. So you press it first from the guard to the driver. You deselect F7 again for the reverse. F8 is the volume to turn it on and off. F9 is the inertia, which you can only demonstrate that when it's moving. Platform 10 is the whistle. And then F11 is to build up the air, and you build it up like when it's stationary. So let's do F11. So that sounds really, really good. I'm really pleased with this. Now, if you look inside the DMU, you can't see anything. The speaker is about there where the doors are, and you can't see anything. And that's the thing. So it's nicely concealed. And so we're going to send it on its merry way. and it's just coming around now. You hear it accelerating. So here it is. The Batman 150 with Coastal DCC sound. I'll just shut it down. So that concludes the end of today's video, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And like I said, as more stuff gets done on the layout, I will keep you updated. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed the Class 60. I hope you've enjoyed the Class 150. And if you have any comments, questions, please feel free to ask them and put them in the comment section below. And I'll endeavour to do my best to get back to you with them. So I hope you've enjoyed it. And until the next time, it's bye from Mildenhall Farmer. Goodbye.